What if one day you wake up surrounded by everything that was supposed to bring you peace, family, recognition, stability, and all you feel is a silence that crushes your soul, not the silence of peace, but of absence, an inner echo whispering in the dark. What's the point of all this? That's exactly what Leo Tolstoy lived through, and he could no longer hide from it. Imagine reaching the pinnacle of success, being admired, published, celebrated, possessing everything that the world teaches us to strive for, a legacy, a family, a place in history, and yet inside, emptiness, a void that applause, routines, and even love can't touch, an invisible wound, deep and aching, like an abyss quietly growing in your chest. Have you ever felt that? That sense that everything looks fine from the outside, but inside something is broken, that you're doing what's expected, but not what's real, that your smile in the mirror feels like a mask you don't remember putting on. Tolstoy wasn't just any man. He was a titan, a symbol of what discipline and genius can achieve. But even he couldn't outrun the weight of his own shadow. That dark night of the soul, where your masks fall apart and the heart begins to scream louder than your thoughts can suppress. He once wrote, "Something inside me is breaking, but I don't know what. I feel a fire that burns in silence." He began to fear death, but what terrified him more was continuing to live like that, soulless, faithless, and without purpose. This isn't just the story of a Russian novelist. It's the story of anyone who's ever had a life that looks fine, but doesn't feel like their own, of those who are tired of pretending, repeating, and emotionally surviving. This could be your story too, because if you've ever whispered to yourself, with your soul in a knot, "Is this really all there is?" then you've already begun your own journey. And maybe, like Tolstoy, you don't need more answers, just more honest questions. Are you ready to walk into the darkness that awakens? Tolstoy had everything we're taught to chase: global recognition, a family that loved him, works that would echo through eternity. But inside, he was barren, a man walking among crowds, with a lost soul. From the moment we're children, we're handed a script: study, succeed, build a family, and then you'll be happy, they say. But no one warns you about the most dangerous moment of all, reaching that final checkpoint and realizing it has nothing to do with what your soul actually needed. What do you do when you have everything and still feel like something essential is missing? That's the first great self-deception, believing that external success can heal internal emptiness, that having more is the same as being more. Tolstoy wrote War and Peace, a masterpiece, then Anna Karenina, one of the most influential novels ever, and after finishing them, he felt vertigo, as if an architect had built a cathedral only to realize the foundation was sand. Perfect structure, but no life inside. And you? Have you stopped to ask if your life truly belongs to you, or if you're just following what's expected? How many times have you smiled without meaning it, said "I'm fine" when you weren't, kept going without knowing where? The soul doesn't feed on promises or milestones. It feeds on truth, on meaning, on alignment between what you feel and what you do. But we live numbed, reacting, consuming, postponing our own awakening. It's like trying to quench a spiritual thirst with achievements, likes, and well-organized to-do lists. But every time you close your eyes, the silence returns. The unhealed wound whispers softly, and the shadow you keep avoiding, it follows you everywhere. Tolstoy knew this. That's why he stopped pretending. His breakdown wasn't a tragedy. It was the start of his transformation. Because sometimes losing your sense of meaning isn't a curse. It's the only way to find a new one that's real. Have you noticed how we normalize dissatisfaction? We fill calendars, not hearts. We change jobs, cities, partners, but not consciousness. We stay busy, but not awake. We breathe, but don't really live. And here comes the second illusion, thinking that ignoring the emptiness will make it disappear, but it won't. What we ignore festers. What we repress poisons us. And one day, it explodes. Sometimes as anxiety, sometimes as a crisis of faith, other times through choices you can't even explain. You self-sabotage. You isolate. You disconnect. Because the life you've built no longer holds you. In the middle of his storm, Tolstoy realized that his collapse wasn't the end. It was a crack where light was trying to get in. But to see it, he had to stop looking outward, stop searching in books, titles, praise, and start listening to what his silence had been screaming all along. And you? What have you been avoiding hearing? What unspoken truth is burning in your chest? What part of yourself have you been betraying just to fit in? The rupture isn't your enemy. The illusion is. Because as long as you keep living a life that doesn't reflect your truth, you'll keep dying a little every day, quietly, blindly, without ever waking up. The deepest wounds don't bleed. They leave no visible scars. They hide in silence, in eyes that drift away, in long sighs at the end of the day. These are the wounds that weigh the most, because no one sees them. Not even you can fully name them. Tolstoy moved through Russian high society, shaking hands, sharing brilliant ideas, all while contemplating suicide. He thought about hanging himself, about pulling the trigger, not because he hated life, but because he no longer felt connected to it. He began avoiding his hunting rifle, not for ethical reasons, but because he feared using it on himself. He wrote secret letters filled with despair. His mind darkened, but no words could fully capture the weight he carried, because the most unbearable pain is the one that feels meaningless. Have you felt that? That sensation of going through life on autopilot, fulfilling roles, being everywhere, except within yourself. You become a functional presence, answering emails, checking boxes, doing what's required. But part of you has already disconnected. It doesn't believe anymore. It doesn't hope. You start to suspect that your life has become a performance, a soulless routine. You look in the mirror and see motion, but no fire. And then you ask, is this it? Is this the adult life everyone promised? The terrifying answer is yes. This is what we were taught to want. Stability, safety, progress. But no one told us that without soul, all of that becomes a golden cage. No one prepared us for the quiet ache of purposelessness, for the weight of existing without meaning, for the hollow spaces success can't fill. It's a cruel game. You're born, you're shaped, you're launched into the world, and they tell you, you have to become someone. But what happens when you succeed and realize that someone isn't you, that you built a borrowed identity, followed someone else's map, and never stopped to ask, who am I, really? Tolstoy figured it out late, at 50, but it's never too late if you have the courage to tear down the lies. Because there comes a moment, a break, when the soul simply says, enough, and if you don't listen, the body starts screaming, your heart goes numb, life turns tasteless. You lose your sense of wonder, your capacity to love, to surrender. You go to work like a zombie, talk to your kids, but you're not really there. You sleep, but don't rest. And that invisible discomfort begins to seep into everything. Your relationships, your confidence, your energy. You no longer know if you're sad or just empty. And in that darkness, everything blurs. You're not sure if you need a new job, a new partner, a new city, or a new soul. Because the issue isn't around you. It's the disconnection within. Disconnection from yourself, from your spirit, from your purpose. Tolstoy didn't need more books, more land, more praise. He needed to return to himself, to inhabit his silence, to rebuild from the inside out. And maybe you're standing on that edge right now. The edge where distractions no longer work, where neither success nor routine can mute that voice inside whispering, this isn't living. Maybe you're already there, living a life that looks successful, but feels like a quiet death. No one notices, but you know, you feel it. Every day it gets harder to pretend. The good news, though it hurts, is this. This crisis isn't the end. It's your soul demanding your return. It's life shaking you, so you finally awaken. Because the soul doesn't give up easily. And if you're hearing this, something inside you has already begun to stir. Are you willing to look, to step into that shadow, to meet the version of you that was buried beneath everything you were told to be? Tolstoy tried everything: religion, science, art, philanthropy. None of it gave him answers. He read sacred texts but felt they echoed with empty repetition. He spoke with theologians, intellectuals, even peasants, but his thirst remained. Because when the soul falls into crisis, borrowed ideas won't save you. Only raw, lived experience can begin to heal. Then one day, a line by Blaise Pascal shattered something in him. Man is an abyss. You must fill him with the eternal. That sentence haunted Tolstoy for weeks, because in it, he found a clue. His emptiness wasn't a flaw. It was a signal. He wasn't sick. He was waking up. Pascal, the 17th century philosopher and mathematician, believed every human carries a God-shaped void, a hole that no wealth, no fame, no logic can fill, a space that drives us to search for something beyond ourselves, something we can't see, but deeply feel, something we can't name, but that gives meaning to everything else. But before finding that, Tolstoy had to walk through his own dark night of the soul. That phrase isn't poetic, it's ancient. It comes from the Spanish mystic Saint John of the Cross. He described the dark night as an unavoidable stage of spiritual awakening, a time when everything that once gave you comfort collapses, when even prayer tastes like dust, when joy, faith, meaning, all go silent. Not because God abandoned you, but because something divine is being born inside you in a new way. It's as if the soul must be empty to be filled again, not with dogma, but with presence, with truth, with authenticity. Tolstoy didn't find God in cathedrals. He found him planting potatoes, in humble conversations with peasants who owned nothing, but lived with meaning. He found him not in climbing towards status, but in letting it all go, because he understood real spiritual truth isn't about what you accumulate, it's about what you surrender. That's where another voice entered his life, Arthur Schopenhauer. Schopenhauer believed the root of human suffering is the will to live, the insatiable drive to want, to grasp, to possess. He saw us as trapped in a cycle of endless desire and disappointment, and only by letting go of that will could we find peace. Tolstoy didn't read Schopenhauer like a theory. He lived it. He stopped chasing outward goals. He stopped writing for praise. He stopped living for others' applause and began asking instead, what does my soul actually need? What is the meaning inside this pain? He began writing not novels, but reflections, letters to his soul, books about ethics, simplicity, and spiritual clarity. His pen no longer sought applause. It sought truth, because at its core, spiritual transformation isn't a journey upward. It's a descent, a symbolic death of the ego, of the false self, of the masks we wear just to function. And you, what parts of you are you willing to let die so something real can live? Philosophy doesn't just live in dusty books. It lives in how you speak to yourself in the morning, in how you breathe through disappointment, in the choices you make when no one's watching. Tolstoy didn't run from the dark. He let it break him, and in the fragments, he found a light that wasn't borrowed, one that didn't depend on success or systems or certainty, a light that rises from within and doesn't flicker in the wind. The dark night of the soul is not punishment, it's purification. It's not the end, it's the pause before rebirth. Tolstoy realized that in order to live again with meaning, he first had to die, symbolically. He had to let his structures collapse, unlearn his borrowed truths, and surrender to the unknown. We often think awakening is about adding something new, but it's not. Awakening is subtraction, shedding lies, shedding fear, shedding the roles we've been forced to play. It's like peeling off a coat that once kept you warm, but now suffocates you. And that's where the new possibility emerges. Because when you no longer know who you are, you're free to choose who you want to be. When the old identity shatters, the soul finally has space to speak for itself. Tolstoy didn't choose a new title. He chose a new coherence. He lived with less, but with more meaning. Spoke to fewer people, but with more truth. He no longer wrote to conquer the world. He wrote to stay true to himself, to hold himself together, to feel alive from the inside. And you, when was the last time you felt fully present in your own body, in your own life, in your own story? When was the last time you did something simply because your soul whispered it, whether or not anyone understood? Transformation doesn't begin outside. It begins the moment you allow yourself to be real, to stop pretending, to admit you're lost, because only those who admit they're lost can draw a new map. And no, it won't be easy. Tolstoy was mocked, called mad, inconsistent, even a hypocrite. But by then, he didn't need approval. He needed peace. That's the cost of awakening. You stop trying to fit in and start becoming yourself. You give up external applause to hear your own voice again. Sometimes staying true to yourself means disappointing others, but the price of self-betrayal is far worse. It drains your energy. It dulls your fire. It sickens your soul. Tolstoy discovered that meaning isn't something you find. It's something you build. It's not given by the world. It's chosen by how you live, in each act, in each silence, in every decision. And maybe you're ready for that turning point too. You don't need to change everything overnight. Just take one step toward what's real, one honest step, and from there, return to yourself. You can choose to let go, to pause, to listen. It won't be comfortable, but it will be yours. Deep, honest, like a quiet revolution burning inside your chest. Because this isn't about having more, it's about being more true, living with purpose, reclaiming your fire. And when you do, something shifts. Not out there, but inside. You walk differently. You see with new eyes. You vibrate from a deeper place. And others feel it. They see it. It spreads. Like Tolstoy, you too can move from collapse to clarity, from despair to awakening. Not because life becomes easier, but because you choose to live from your center, from your soul. And that choice, even if invisible, changes everything. Now it's your turn. Because if you've come this far, it wasn't by accident. It wasn't a random click. It was your soul pulling you toward this message. Maybe through curiosity, maybe through pain, maybe because something inside you, despite the silence, still refuses to give up. You may be exhausted. You may feel numb. You may have walked through paths that promised light, but only left you more lost. That's okay. Many of us have. What matters now is this. You stayed. You listened with your heart. And that, in itself, is an act of courage. The dark night of the soul isn't a punishment. It's an initiation, a sacred fire, a storm that strips away everything that's false, so you can remember who you are beneath the noise. And no, most people aren't ready to go through it, but you are different. You've felt the quiet ache of disconnection. You've looked around and thought, there has to be more than this. You've sensed that the life you were handed doesn't match the life you're meant to live. And still, you showed up. You sat with this story. You let it crack you open. You're not broken. You're transforming. This space, this video, isn't about answers. It's about resonance. It's for the ones who are done faking it. For the ones who've tried being who they were supposed to be and are finally ready to become who they really are. If something inside you stirred while listening, if a quiet voice whispered, "This is me," don't ignore it. Leave your mark in the comments. Not for us, for you. Write, "I am walking through my dark night," not as a cry for help, not as a confession of weakness, but as a sacred declaration, a vow to stop running, a symbol for others, silent seekers just like you, who are still trying to find their way in the dark. Let that comment be your lighthouse. Let it be your line in the sand, a moment where you said, "I'm here, I feel it, I'm not turning away." And when others read it, they'll know they're not alone. That somewhere out there, someone else is breathing through the shadows. Someone else is holding their soul together with trembling hands. Someone else is trying to rebuild from within. Subscribe, not because of algorithms or habits, but because this is more than a channel. It's a sanctuary for honest seekers, for those who've fallen apart and are ready to rise. Not in perfection, but in truth. A place where we don't chase illusions, we reclaim meaning. Here, the pain is honored, the silence is sacred, the process is respected. And if there's one thing you take with you today, let it be this. You are not too late, not too broken, not too lost. There is no map for awakening, no timeline, no right pace, just presence, just breath, just the willingness to keep going. The soul doesn't care about achievements. It wants depth. It wants coherence. It wants to come home. So let this be your moment, your quiet turning point. Let the fire do its work. Let the silence speak. Let your dark night be the beginning, not of the end, but of something more real than you've ever known. And if it hurts, let it hurt. as long as it's for something true.